And now to get you an in-depth analysis, I am joined by Professor Abhijit Das, who's been the former head of WTP Centre, IIFT, and international trade expert as well. Good evening, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us here on DD India News Hour. Now, after more than a decade and 21 roundtable meetings, this EFTA has been made possible. How important this becomes when we talk about from a common man's point of view for the benefit of our viewers, Professor?
Good afternoon, Deepika, and first and foremost, thank you for having me on your program. This agreement, which was signed today, is certainly a watershed in India's FTA engagements. India has been negotiating a free trade deal with European Union since 2007 and with EFTA since 2008. So in a manner of speaking, this certainly is a very big step in India's engagement with the Western world. While India had signed an FTA with Australia last year, it's important to note that India does not, till today, did not have an FTA with the countries in the Western Hemisphere. So this certainly is an important step. And if we look at the contents of the free trade agreement, one thing which really stands out and which is not present in India's earlier FTAs is some sort of a commitment. It's not a binding commitment, but certainly an important commitment whereby EFTA countries shall aim to increase FDI into India by $100 billion over the next 15 years. Of course, India would have to ensure a favorable climate for foreign investment from EFTA to come in. So to my mind, that is perhaps the most important aspect of this free trade agreement. And if the investment which has been committed under the FTA does fructify, that will have very important implications for creation of jobs and hence for common man in the coming few years.
And also when we talk about the investment, specifically this $100 billion investment that you're talking about, we have to provide favorable conditions to those countries also. But having given the fact that this is already done on the papers, how are we looking at when we talk about a boost to employment opportunities and we talk about a boost to Make in India initiative as well, Professor Das?
Deepika, the boost in domestic employment and Make in India will really come through once the investment flows in. No doubt there is a commitment, but we will have to see how this commitment gets fructified in reality. And that is when this agreement will really get tested. I am hopeful that since the agreement has been signed in good faith, the EFTA countries will certainly stick to their part of the deal. And if they are able to stick to their part of the deal, then definitely foreign investment coming into India would be a very welcome news for the Indian industry, for employment, and also for Make in India. Of course, it will also depend on what conditions can India impose on the FDI which comes in terms of performance requirements. So we will have to wait and see, but at this juncture, we should be optimistic that this agreement will open the doors for more foreign investment to come in.
Professor Das, when we talk about optimism, when we talk about agreement, we have to look at the bilateral relations as well, which the current government have developed very nicely across different length and breadths with different countries. We've seen that be it during the time of war, be it during the time of COVID-19 pandemic, or be it during the time of trade benefits. How are you looking at this government's initiative towards developing bonds and towards strengthening the bilateral ties that are, giving an ROI in such a form?
Certainly, the present government's attempts at strengthening bilateral ties through deepening trade relationship is a few notches higher than what had happened in the past. Let's recall that during 2003 to 2010 or so, India did ink quite a few trade agreements. These were with Singapore, ASEAN, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia. But now what we are seeing over the past 2-3 years, the intention is to also get into trade deals with more advanced economies. That could pose challenges as well as that could give huge opportunities for the Indian industry and Indian exporters. But at the end of the day, India would be able to take advantage of these opportunities if we are able to become more price competitive. And we are already seeing many initiatives being taken by the government to make Indian exports more price competitive. And of course, that also brings me to the other area of services. While the fine print on services in India, EFTA, FTA remains to be seen, I can be hopeful that we would get some market access for our service providers in the EFTA countries. One issue in the goods sector that needs to be highlighted is gold imports, which is substantially coming into India from Switzerland. And again, we will have to see what the fine print really is on gold. But if we go by the precedent in India, UAE, where India allowed UAE to export gold to India at slightly more favorable terms, we might see similar provisions in EFTA, and that would be in our own domestic interest.
13 FTAs are already in place, and now this EFTA. We are also willing to become the third largest economy. How much of a boost will it provide when we talk about becoming a developed country, B, the third largest economy as well, Professor Das?
Signing FTAs does give India a large global market for its exports of goods and services. There's absolutely no denying that fact. But accompanied with that opportunity also comes challenges, particularly in areas which are going to be burgeoned, which are going to be buoyant in the future, such as digital trade, such as green products, green technologies. If we look at the template in many of the past FTAs of developed countries, there were provisions which could have tied the hands of FTA partner countries from giving a boost to the domestic producers. Luckily, the EFTA agreement with India, I have had a very quick look, and I couldn't find too many provisions which might, in a way, constrain India from giving support to domestic producers in these two important sectors, that is digital and green products, green technologies. So to cut a long story short, if we are price competitive, we will be able to tap into the large export market. That will definitely give a big boost to our expanding GDP and our ambitions of becoming a $10 trillion economy in the near future. But as I said, we also have to be cognizant of constraints which the FTA might impose on our domestic producers.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Das, for joining us and bringing a rounded perspective on the EFTA deal that has been signed today. Thank you.